Nations elected council. So some of the events and meetings that took place since our last update were, again, we had the Community Awareness Week. And on May 16th, I was invited to attend in Toronto at the invitation of the Lieutenant Governor to an event commemorating the birthday of Queen Elizabeth. This was held at the Royal Conservatory of Music, and I had the privilege of sitting in the box of honor with the Lieutenant Governor. On May 17th, we celebrated the 20th anniversary of our birthing center. On that same week, May 17th to 19th, we had two committees in our community, the Debaywin Justice Committee and the Aboriginal Justice Strategy. These committees had their meeting in our community, and they were struck further to Justice Frank Iacobucci's report on First Nations and juries. You know, we have a number of organizations from throughout the province and across the country that are always contacting Six Nations and wanting to have their events here, and we're always open to entertaining them and hosting them. On May 19th, Councillor Ray Merica and I traveled to Ottawa, and we met with the Minister of Sport, Carla Qualtrough. We talked to her about getting her assistance in trying to get our lacrosse players into the United Kingdom with Haudenosaunee passports, and also about how we could eventually get lacrosse as one of the games in the Pan Am Games and the Olympics. So we'll continue to work with her on those. During that time in Ottawa, we also met with one of the policy advisors to the Minister of Finance, Mr. Bill Marneau, just to talk about some of the finance and taxation issues that our members are facing. On the 20th, as I mentioned, we met with the Regional Director General of Indigenous Affairs and advised her of all of our priorities that we want in light of the new budget that's coming down from the federal government. On May 21st, I was at Tourism to accept the donation of 3 barn quilts from a lady from Ilderton, Ontario, who had painted them and wanted to give them to our community. One of them was done in memory of the residential school survivors, and another one was with respect to the missing and murdered Indigenous women. They were also on display at Woodland for a short time. We also had our annual awards banquet on May 21st. The winner of the Wilma General Award this year was Kitty Lickers, and the community treasures from Six Nations Council were Alicia Anderson and Ida Martin. On May 22nd, Elizabeth Dockstader, who has the Cornhusk doll store in the Village Plaza, organized and hosted a group of 6 youth art show. This was 6 young people who she took under her wing and worked with, and they did their own art, and it was the display. It was a wonderful show. They had their artwork on display, and they also sold quite a bit of it. Of course, May 23rd was Bread and Cheese. It was one of our biggest events this year, and it was a good day. The weather held out, and we had a good ball tournaments, and I want to thank Councillor Terry General for organizing those. Now, May 24th, we had the big bike in our community, and there were a number of teams that rode the bike to raise money for heart and stroke. I had the honor to ride with the staff from the Iroquois Lodge. On the 25th, I traveled to Toronto along with Lonnie Bunbury and Phil Montour, and we had a meeting with Adam Vaughan, who is the Member of Parliament for Toronto area there. He's also the Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister. And we talked to him about our land rights and our global solution and about our community. So he was quite supportive, and he'll continue to monitor things for us up on the Parliament Hill. On the 25th that evening, the council also had a session with the Six Nations Development Corporation just to get an update on some of the things they're doing. Later that same evening, I was in Brantford and was asked to be the reviewing officer for the number 104 Starfighter Brant Air Cadets. That was a good time, and we have some of our community members who are part of that cadets, and they're always looking to recruit more kids if they want to get involved. On May 26th, I was in Downsview for the announcement of the federal and provincial funding for the North American Indigenous Games. Minister Michael Couteau was there from the province, and Minister Carla Qualtrough from the feds, and they each announced $3.5 million towards the North American Indigenous Games for a total of $7 million. And those games, of course, will be held in Toronto and at Six Nations in the summer of 2017. On May 27th, Council and the admin staff held a barbecue on our front lawn as part of our Community Awareness Week. And that evening, Woodland Cultural Centre hosted, I think it's their 42nd First Nations art show. It was well attended and a lot of good artwork, so that's a fine event that goes on every year. On the 28th, I attended Mayor Ken Hewitt, the Mayor of Haldeman's annual gala, which was held at the Cayuga Arena. He raises a lot of money and makes donations to different charities out of the funds that are raised. And one of the charities that was being receiving a donation this year was the Six Nations Food Bank, so we thank Mayor Hewitt for that. On May 30th, I had the honor to sit in the legislature at Queen's Park to listen to the Premier make an apology and to make a statement of reconciliation with respect to the residential schools. I was also accompanied by 5 of our residential school survivors, Geronimo Henry, Shirlene Bunbury, Roberta Hill, Dawn Hill, and Blanche Easton Hill. In addition to an apology made by the Premier, she also made an announcement of funding in the amount of $250 million. This funding will fall under 5 pillars: the legacy of the residential schools, closing the gaps and removing barriers, culturally relevant and responsive justice system, supporting Indigenous culture, and reconciling relationships. There will also be funding applied towards a Save the Evidence campaign to refurbish the former Mohawk Institute in Brantford. After the presentation in the legislature, everyone was invited to a reception in the Lieutenant Governor's suite at Queen's Park. And later that day, Minister David Zimmer, the Minister of Aboriginal Affairs, also announced that the first week of November would be Treaty Awareness Week. So it was a pretty historic day for everyone, and I was glad that we were able to be there and with some of the residential school survivors and to witness the statement. On June 2nd, Councillors Ray Miracle and Carl Hill attended the Ontario First Nations Limited Partnership Annual Assembly. That is the organization that administers the gaming dollars that we receive. On June 4th, we had our annual Tom Longboat Run. And on the 8th of June, I went and briefly spoke to the regional family councils that met in our community. They are family councils for nursing homes, of which our Iroquois Lodge is a member. And I was there just to provide them some greetings and welcome to our community. And on the 10th, we had representatives of the Royal Bank of Canada also in our community, having a small roundtable with their senior executives. So some of the upcoming events, just on June 11th, the Six Nations Polytech held their annual graduation celebration. On June 14th, McMaster will be hosting a symposium on water in Brantford, which I'll be speaking at. And on June 15th, the Six Nations Development Corporation is going to be hosting an energy launch beginning at 6 o'clock at Tourism. So if you want to hear about Hydro One or OSP, Ontario Electricity Support Program, please attend that event and get more information. On June 16th, I'll be attending the Brantford Sports Recognition Awards. And on the 17th, we have another conference in our community, which is an aging conference on how to make communities age-friendly. This as well will be held at the Community Hall. And on the 17th in the morning as well at 10 a.m., Susie Miller, as you know, organized the Pen Pals gathering over the past few years, and this is going to be their annual get-together at Chiefswood Park. And this year, the Lieutenant Governor is going to be in attendance, so that's going to be an exciting event. On June 18th, I'll be taking part in the Pride Walk in Brantford. And on the 21st, in addition to our Solidarity Day events, it's going to be an exciting day up at Woodland Cultural Centre. The Prince's Charities, which are the charities of Prince Charles, their members will be meeting up at the Woodland Cultural Centre, and there'll be an event going on there, and the Governor General, David Johnson, and the Lieutenant Governor, Elizabeth Dowdeswell, will also be in attendance for that event. And this is leading as well into looking for support for the Save the Evidence campaign to refurbish the Mohawk Institute. So we're quite excited about this because these are some pretty high-profile people that are certainly going to be visiting our community up at Woodland and touring the former residential school. So it's a good indication that the message about the residential schools and the dark part of our history that it was is getting out to people, and they're wanting to do something about it. On the 22nd, I'm going to be traveling to Buffalo to meet with some representatives of the Department of Homeland Security. You know, I have been receiving different assist calls from different community members about issues they're having with the border crossing, like people being asked for blood quantum letters, or if they live in the United States, being told that they have to get green cards to work there. So I've been working with officials in the Department of Homeland Security that I met during a border crossing summit at Akwesasne a couple of years ago. So we've elevated this to try and meet with some of the higher level people at the Department of Homeland Security. So that meeting's happening on June 22nd, and there'll be representatives from Akwesasne attending with me, along with I think Gord Peters, the Grand Chief of the Association of Iroquois and Allied Indians, and some of the other chiefs, some of the other Iroquois communities, to start dealing with some of these border crossing issues. This is going to be our initial meeting, so we'll keep everybody informed of our progress. From June 22nd to the 24th, the Six Nations Language Commission and Six Nations Polytech will be hosting a conference at Polytech. It's called Enhancing Indigenous Education Through Co-Creation. It's a gathering that's being organized by the Redo Hall Foundation. So again, there's another group that wants to have a meeting here in our community. On the 24th, I'll be going to Mississauga. I've been asked to speak about reconciliation at the Eastern Synod of the Lutheran Church. And on the 25th, there's going to be a special event at Woodland Cultural Centre. There's be a special show there, but more importantly, the Ontario Arts Council is going to be presenting awards to Samuel Thomas and Elizabeth Dockstader. So I encourage everyone to attend that event on the 25th. The last week of June, myself and a number of councillors will be attending the All Ontario Chiefs Conference, which will be held in Thunder Bay. And in July, the Assembly of First Nations will be holding their annual assembly in Niagara Falls, and we are going to be the host First Nation, and we're having the Celebration of Artists and the Six Nations Talent Showcase on Wednesday, July 13th, beginning at 6 and running until midnight, and everybody's welcome to attend that at no cost. Also watch for the Red Barn, which is going to be taking place in July. This goes on every year. And there will be registration on Solidarity Day, and there'll be other registration dates in the plaza. From July 19th to 21st, the Ontario Indigenous Summer Games are going to be held in Brantford and at Six Nations. The coordinator for that, I think, is Kevin Sandy in Dallas Square, if you want any information. And lastly, the Great Law reading will be August 7th to 12th, and it's going to be held at the Sour Springs Longhouse. I did mention it on my radio update, but I had the wrong location. I had said it was at the ILA Arena, which I think was initially the location, but it is going to be at the new Longhouse at Sour Springs. So that's it for this month, and again, you can see we're pretty busy, and we're going to keep at it because everything we do, I guess, is for the benefit of everybody in our community. So thank you very much. Yawa.